Hello, everybody. Welcome back to OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast, episode 36. I am your host, Joe Brown, joined by my podcast passenger princess today, Sierra Dawn. Sierra, how are you feeling? I'm a little concerned. Are you all right? You had a lot of travel over the weekend.
I'm just, you just know those days where you wake up, you're just like, no, I'm just not really feeling it today. I made some lentil soup with bread, and that was like the only thing I've done. Other than that, I've laid in bed and I've been going through every episode, season by season, of House on the official House Wikia, looking through all like the plot summaries. So instead of watching the episode, I can read like 10 paragraphs. But I wasn't feeling, leading the podcast today. So I appreciate you, stepping in the driver's seat for that one.
Yeah, I can carry the freight. I'm more than capable of handling the lead here today. But there's a lot you touched on there. We can't just breeze past. We can't start talking about Pokemon yet, Sierra, because first of all, you're using the House Wikipedia page kind of like a manga compared to watching the anime. Like you're reading Wikipedia instead of watching House, which is interesting. Why do you not want to watch House? It's a very good show. It's very well acted. There's a lot of drama.
I've watched it. So if you watch an episode of TV, it'll take you about, depending on like if it's like normally a 30-minute episode, an hour, that's a 20 to an hour of my life to watch then every episode. I, in like a solid, 30 or so minutes, can go through an entire season of House by reading through the entire plot recaps on the House Wikia. I don't know, like I've done this for, House, I've done it for Grey's Anatomy, like I've done it for
Grey's Anatomy. That might as well be reading One Piece. Grey's Anatomy. That's like 25 seasons or something.
That one's also just complex to follow because I'm just like, oh my god, there's so much going on. There's so much malpractice going on. Don't tell Lou I'm saying this right now. Like
malpractice.
There's so much to that show, but like I don't know. I love like you want to like dive into a universe that isn't your own, but like you don't want to like spend all the time like going like I can read three seasons worth of House and what it would take me to watch one episode. So
I guess it's a more efficient way of reminiscing through House, which is it's a great show. But the other thing that you talked about was your soup, because you have this whole soup thread on Twitter and everything. And I knew we were going to have to discuss this before we really got into any of our important topics today. So you started like a couple months ago, the thread on Twitter, and like you've just been adding more soups to it. So you're kind of like the Aaron Trailer of, instead of ice cream, it's Dr. Aaron Trailer, excuse me. You're like, instead of ice cream, it's with soups.
I mean, that was what the thread was inspired by. Like, I loved making soup. But instead of just like posting random pictures, it was just like, yo, I can do a thread about this as inspired by Dr. Aaron Trailer. So when I started making more soups, because I love to just make a soup and make like enough to have 8 servings and freeze it and then like rinse and repeat. So I always have different soups. So it's just like, oh, I'm going to start taking pretty pictures of all the different ones I make. So yeah, that's a thing. And today was a lentil soup because frankly, waiting for a paycheck to hit, there's no food in my house. So I had a little bit of frozen mirepoix in my freezer and I had these lentils and it was like, well, I can make a soup out of this. And I did that. Made some bread with no yeast, just a little flour and sugar and salt, and made a bread. It was pretty good.
I do like it's not funny, obviously, but like waiting on a check, so time to eat like the Great Depression. You just rationing pieces of bread and putting whatever you can into a soup can.
It's a no yeast bread. It's literally just like the bread, water, a little sugar, a little salt, a little baking powder. I did a little olive oil as well, so it wasn't quite as dense. Literally knead that up, throw it in the oven for 25 minutes, and then you got a bread to dip your soup in.
Like, you're just trying to like eat. So like you're not trying to eat food, you're just trying to like not be hungry at that point by eating bread without yeast and the lentil soup. But
I just didn't feel like buying. Honestly, it was pretty good. I was pretty impressed. I'm like, I will make that bread again, even when the paycheck does hit my account and there's yeast in the house, like it was pretty okay.
I mean, at this point, you make anything. You should make a thread of all your different creative, frozen, sweet potato, something that you had in your freezer.
That one was good. Yeah. The sweet potato and ground turkey with a little bit of onion, like like hash brown mix you'd freeze, and then you throw that up. Sometimes you cut up a little I forget what the specific sausage is called, but you cut up with a little bit of that and like throw it in there, and it's super delicious, super easy.
I think I'd probably put my money on you. I'm thinking if we had like a Pokemon commentator Food Network special and like we're on Guy's Grocery Games or something, I think I'd bet on you, but like there's a small part of my brain that also says Dwee can handle it. He might take you because Dwee also is a good cook and like is really good with like he's like a very refined ramen noodle eater and like researcher like all over the country. He knows the best ramen spots. So it'd probably be between you two as the casters. I'm not sure if the TCG casters can hold you guys' weight.
You know what makes me different though? Is I'm scrappy. I'm resourceful. Because the thing is, a lot of these twists with these cooking games, unless you're going on like Hell's Kitchen or like MasterChef or whatnot, is they're taking ingredients away. Or they're
That's
like,
true.
You gotta cook with this. I threw this mirepoix in and look at this lentil soup recipe, and it's like, yeah, you need a whole can of crushed tomatoes. And I'm like, well, I don't have crushed tomatoes. So I guess all of a sudden I'm making a curried like lentil soup, and I'm just like throwing stuff in there and like, I don't know, like sauteing this garlic to like make this curry soup. And I just like, I would thrive in those conditions. Whereas someone like Tweed, like, you know, he's calculated. He knows all the stuff. But all of a sudden they're like, hey, make this ramen dish, but without these ingredients. And he's going to freeze up. He's
going to falter at the last second. And you'll go, oh my God, that would be fun. We should do that at some point. That would be a fun time, a cooking competition between casters. But anyway, we've talked long enough. For the listeners, Sierra, they came here for Pokemon. They came here for us, but really they came here to talk about Pokemon. And boy, do we have a lot on tap today as the Indianapolis regionals happened last weekend. Sierra was there. I was watching from home. It's a lot of great discussions that we're going to have regarding Indy and the teams and everything like that from the first Regulation G event. We'll also touch on the Buenos Aires special event that happened last week at the same time. So it was a smaller player count, but there were still some pretty interesting teams that ended up being in the top cut of that event. And then just, overall some other fun things that happened over the weekend and since the last time we talked to everybody here on OHKO. So Sierra, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Rajan winning? You want to start with Regulation G overall? You want to start with our predictions from last week, which are like kind of not great, if I'm going to be honest? Like, where are we starting?
I think our overall general view of Regulation G to kick off, especially with the Indy, and then kind of like narrow in on things, because this was our first look at Regulation G. I am not going to lie. I was not excited about Regulation G going into Indy whatsoever. From my own testing, I have not been very successful. Mind you, the teams that I've been testing, when it's kind of like a ground-out Slitherwing, my testing isn't going to be the most perfect, right? But I wasn't really a fan of what I was watching others play. I wasn't a fan of how the matchup seemed to go and anything else. After watching Indy, I kind of might be a little bit more sold. I do think that there's like frustrating things going on in the format, but I actually don't think it looked like as miserable as I kind of thought it was going to be for the format that would be up until Worlds.
Yeah, I think more people are probably in your camp this week after, where you were on Thursday, your opinion of Regulation G on Thursday compared to the end of Sunday night, where after watching the whole regional. I think one of the things that helps, and I've said this for years and I will say forever, is that restricteds make commentary exciting. Regardless if you think they're overpowered, regardless if you think they should be legal, or any of those conversations are not for here. They're too strong. Blah blah blah. Everyone uses the same Pokemon. Blah blah blah. That's irrelevant. Restricted Pokemon make the game exciting to watch, and you can tell from the commentary too. It makes it exciting for the casters to talk about the games. And when you it's normal. We say, "Oh, all right, Kyogre with the water spout, it's cool. All right, Calyrex Shadow Rider, he's gonna sweep the game. Cool." But when you see Terra Electric Terrain, Electro Drifts from Miraidon with choice specs, one-shotting grass types that are resisting, that's a whole nother world of excitement. I think everybody because of Rajan winning, because of the meta kind of, no Calyrex Shadow Rider in top 8, like the meta we got to see in Indy, we're very fortunate. If we saw a bunch of Shadow Rider mirrors and like there was no Lugia match, there was no, Miraidon that won, there was no Zamazenton stream or anything, you might not feel as excited about this format.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about the maybe not feeling as excited of certain matches or showcase. And I think that is a byproduct of the fact that we only get to be showcasing 14 rounds of Swiss. Because when the selections for the stream matches are being picked, I mean, there was definitely cases where it's like, oh, we don't know which of these two matchups to pick between like the names of the players that it is. We're looking at the teams. Oh, okay, well, here's going to be a Calyrex mirror in comparison to what this would be, which is exciting. So like there definitely was the opportunity for those things to be showcased, and it definitely wasn't shy over the weekend either. I know for a watching purpose it ended up being really exciting, but that's obviously because things are a little curated as well. I know, like, talking to Nick Navarre, he went up against 6 Calyrex riders in a row, like back to back.
Oh, wow.
So it's like for him, like, maybe this isn't as exciting, but hey, on stream when we're watching, for the most part, pretty exciting matches, then I gotta say, like, as a caster, like, that I am excited. Except for that one where it was like the encore lock and the thunderclap.
Oh my god, it was like 18 turns long, and like they were taking 45 seconds every turn.
Well, because it was the actual, like, yeah, it was so, like, I'm just glad I wasn't casting them, but it was, you know what, you go for what you can, right? But like other than that, we got some really like high octane gameplay, which is exciting.
Yeah, I think overall, I would be in your camp that like I'm more excited about the format. Like, just honestly, one of the coolest things was the top 12 graphic and then the top 8 for the restricteds. Like, I did the math, and if you allowed the restricteds, some of those low percentage Pokemon just would not have been on the graphic, right? Like man, 11% Shiyu, that seems low. 11% or Shifu Single Strike, like that seems low to be the 12 most used Pokemon. But then you forget that there's also the Calyrex Shadow and Ice Rider and Kyogre and other things that would have surpassed it. So I like that separation. Excuse me, because now, like, you see Pelipper on there, you see Farigiraf, you see all these other cool Pokemon that wouldn't be there if we were having restrictions on the same graphic.
Well, I also just think it's important that they're split up for the case that with the restricteds, I mean, you're only allowed the one, right? So all of a sudden, if you're showcasing the one restricted, like, you can't have, like, realistically 70% Shadow Rider and 40% Ice Rider, because then it's just over on, right? So it's like, the mathematically wise, it'll throw a lot of numbers off because it would just like misconstrue on what the top Pokemon is. Because like Calyrex Rider was like 37% or something on day 2, while Incineroar was like at 70%, and it's like they're both top, but in different ways. It's just that you can't put Calyrex on the same team as you would whatever restricted, so it's naturally just going to have a lower percentage. But it was cool to see like what Pokemon would be falling off, because obviously if you had a team of 6 powerful Pokemon and you're now adding a restricted, like what was the easiest one for a lot of people to cut? Because like Fluttermane took a huge hit in the standings and was one that did get cut in a lot of those cases when team building.
And you know what's crazy is like some of the Fluttermanes, like Andrew Zhang, who got second, he still had a conventional excuse me, booster energy and, just try to do damage with the Fluttermane. But a lot of Fluttermanes were like, speed booster plus taunt and icy wind and moonblast protect. Like, so it seems so weird to me that in a format where you were expecting Shadow Rider to dominate, right? It ended up only being on 16% of day 1 teams, and then on day 2 it was on 18% day 1, 16% day 2. So it wasn't as dominant as we thought it was going to be. But if you're going into this meta and Fluttermane's only on 28% of teams, but like you're not even bringing Shadow Ball when you're expecting Shadow Rider as the number 1 Pokemon, like I feel like that was confusing to me.
I just feel like with the Shadow Rider, like if there's other things that you're kind of prioritizing, I feel like the Flutters like picked up a lot of different like other one-off moves. Like there was the one fake Tears Flutter that we got to see on stream, right? That I thought was really, really interesting. And if your team has other answers into something like the Cali Shadow, which ended up not making nearly as a splash as people kind of expected going into the event, like, you don't really need it. Because I think, too, offhand, and I'd have to look a little deeper into it, it looked like the Fluttermanes that kind of, maybe not quite, because Luca had a Fluttermane on his 14th place team, though I don't necessarily think Luca was the most thrilled with his team choice going into it. Luca's a really strong player. He's kind of carrying his teams, and he was tweeting the same thing about that.
There's no King Gambit on the team. Like, what's going on?
But the point I was trying to get at is I think, like, Flutter, you could have it on, like, the Tailwind teams when you have other powerful Pokemon as well. And you have then the speed then on your side for a variety of different attackers, right? So it's like Flutter and Chi Use are being used with this Tailwind. So you don't really need the Shadow, but you have other ways to deal with the Calyrex Shadow Rider, right?
Yeah, and I think let's talk with all of the restricted. So we'll talk here, obviously starting with the two horses. Going into it, they were the two horses to beat, right? A whole bunch of Kentucky Derby jokes the whole weekend, which I thought was entertaining. I appreciate a good pun. So I thought the casters did a great job with their horse puns. But it's kind of a situation where everyone thought Shadow Rider was going to be the best, and then because of that, people are using Ice Rider and Trick Room teams and stuff to counter it. But, like, I don't know how to feel, Sierra, but, like, just because Shadow Rider, its best finish was, 24th or something? Yeah. Like, I still don't think that discredits that it could potentially be the best restricted in the format. You know what I mean? Like, I know it didn't top cut, and there were Calyrex Ice Rider was significantly higher usage in day 2, but, like, I still think there's a world that Shadow Rider is the best restricted.
I'm really intrigued with this format because I actually feel like things are a lot more even across the board than I originally thought, to where the other Pokemon of the team will make a big difference, and that the whole answer for which the best restricted isn't actually as clear cut as that. Like, I think where Calyrex Shadow Rider, like, I think the fact that we didn't have a single one in the top cut is a little bit odd. The highest placed Shadow Rider was 24th place, I believe. I don't see one higher than that going on for the weekend. But I think that people were prepared for Shadow Rider going in, and I think that it's also a team that needs a little bit more exploring, but I don't automatically think that it's, like, the best restricted coming out here as well. It has super strong power, but it's not quite as, like, doesn't have the same longevity as the Ice Rider. Like, there's a couple of, like, it's like typing, you can kind of get bodied by things. It's just a little bit odd in that sense. I also feel like, too, Ice Rider, like, going into the event, I don't know, I expected Ice Rider to kind of pop off quite well. I was like, there's no way that, like, Tub and, like, a bunch of people aren't on Ice Rider and are not bringing it to the event. And, like, it definitely showed up numbers, like, wise in that case.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just counting in top 16, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 Cali Ice out of the top 16. And, as you mentioned, it was well over 30% of the usage of day 2 of the teams had Calyrex or Ice Rider on it. And when I'm noticing in the trend between all these teams, like, I'm just scrolling through all the way from, Justin Burns down to, Leonard and other people in top 16. It's like, I don't know if everyone's in the same team building group or if, like, the team is, like, kind of just, this is just general purpose good Cali Ice stuff, because almost every one of the teams has Amoonguss, Incineroar, Urshifu, and Raging Bolt on it. And then, like, kind of the flex slot is Pelipper or Farigiraf. Like, if you're looking through all these teams, it's like they all are Amoonguss, Incineroar, Urshifu, and Raging Bolt. And then you have one flex slot with your Cali Ice team.
There was, if you're looking down a little bit further, because, like, there was a really, really high representation of Cali Ice going on to this, they do start to differ a little bit more. I do think when you're looking at the Cali Ice that the Pokemon that you are specifically naming to go along with it is kind of the more, it's the more consistent to the more reliable version of the team, so you'll get to see that a little bit more with how it's placing going on overall. But if you look more on, like, the bottom end, you look like 40 and on, and the Cali Ices, it differs quite a lot. I just think that you really got to show, like, and see that like Pelipper and Farigiraf were such good teammates, as well as like those other kind of like good stuff Pokemon, because it kind of just covered for anything in the meta, which I also think was really, really important going into the first Reg G event, considering how all over the place everything was in what was or wasn't good. So he's just like, you needed something that had some sort of option for dealing with any team.
Yeah, and you talk about the Pelipper, and this is where you can, like, I know Wolf gets credit for calling Miraidon in the finals, but like this is where you pat yourself on the back from last week's episode, because you were all over the Pelipper conversation, and I was like, all right, I kind of believe it. Yeah, like I was playing on Showdown, I'm like, yeah, Wide Guard's cool, whatever. But then 18% on day one, and then it goes up to 26% on day two. Like Pelipper kind of cracked in this format.
It is like, and like talking to people too, and like the interviews and stuff, because that was my job for Indy, was doing the interviews. Is like people were also like applauding the bird. There was even like Life or Pelipper, because it was like, oh well, I needed a special attacker. Oh wait, Pelipper I guess can also do that. Like my bad. So it can just fit such a variety of roles. That was actually really, really interesting to see on the team. There ended up being the two that made it into top 8. One's by Burns, that is running that good stuff, Calyrex Ice. And the other was, that had it with the Zamazenta team, which also I think is a good pairing there. But I think it just pairs so well into like a bunch of different things yeah, I'm not too surprised, like, the Pelipper. Like, Pelipper was still even good before when it couldn't enable as good of tools. Like, it had some tools it was, like, enabling, like, the Archaludon, etc. And now it can do that even better. And Urshifu Rapid Strike's still super strong, and now you just make it stronger. Like, it's good. It's a good bird.
Yeah, I'm just like looking through Tauka, and like I know Shadow Rider had a bad day, bad day too, but like here are Pokemon that there were more of in top 8 than Calyrex Shadow Rider: Zarina, Iron Jugulus, Latios, Galarian Moltres. They're all at 1, by the way, but like they're technically more than Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is just crazy to think about. And, we can move on to our next restricted of Terapagos. Now, this boy, I was not familiar with this game. Honestly, like I was talking with Jake and talked to Justin, and Jake, it's his favorite restricted he's been building around it. Some of our other friends have also been building teams around Terapagos. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Mono normal, it's cute. I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna stick with my Ice Rider. I'm gonna stick with Koraidon or something like that. But the amount of damage that Choice Specs Terapagos can put out with that Stellar Terra is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that the Terapagos was another Pokemon that kind of fell into it was being built out wrong to kick things off, to where it was kind of underestimated a little bit. I also feel like from the get-go, like people didn't think it was going to be too bad. It was just when we saw the Calm Mind sets and they weren't necessarily clicking with the team, they ended up being a little too passive, that it kind of got written off a little bit more again. But to being able to see it do damage, in this tournament, I think is really, really good. And just how stupid strong Terra's Starstorm is, and the fact that you then get directly punished for terrestrializing a Pokemon for any scenario is just incredible. So 2 of them in top cut, one by Andrew Zhang, of course, who made second place. Also Nick, who was the Cali Ice Slayer over the weekend. But Nick, I believe, went 11-0 before he dropped a game with this team. It was incredible. When you'll enjoy this, he actually accredited this team to Burns. Apparently, this is the first thing that Burns was on, and then Burns went to Cali Ice, and then Nick was like, "Nope, I vibe with this team, so
I'm staying." I'm clicking. I'm hitting everything neutrally with Choice Specs damage. I think that's the craziest part, because I was trying to find the person that was Choice Specs with just Stellar Stars or whatever, and Rest Talk. So it was only going to click that
Talk
or Sleep Talk. Yeah. So I'm used to these singles name. Where you put them together. You put Rest and then Sleep Talk. Yeah. Where basically you put you are only clicking that move ever. You are terrestrializing Terapagos every single game, and then if they have a Moongus and if they put you to sleep, then you click Sleep Talk, and your only option is to hit the attack. I thought that was a really unique way to play Terapagos too.
I feel at that point, if you're locking in specs, what else would you really put on there?
That's their point, right? You're not gonna click any. You're gonna click Earth Power. Like, no, you're gonna click Stellar every time.
I will say I do love the addition of hyperbeam. I think that was really, really cool because Nick did have Earth Power on his Terapagos, but that was the difference between his and Andrew's, because Andrew had the Terra Starstorm Dark Pulse Sleep Top Hyperbeam, and we did actually see the Hyperbeam at one point on stream, and it was actually super, super hype because, I mean, when do we really get to see Hyperbeam nowadays in Pokemon, right? Like, that's not common, but hey, if you hit the field, you just need to click the nuke button, and you know the Terra Starstorm isn't going to get it, or it's going to be a spread attack at that point. I don't know. It was so cool.
I mean, last time Hyperbeam was Indy 2022 with Stefan Mott's Kyogre team with Max Strike on his AV Kyogre.
We don't count the Max Strike days.
But he could also But he also clicked Hyperbeam at some point when it wasn't Terrestrialized, Dynamaxed. So it counts.
I don't think it's as cool because
it's not as cool.
You're running it because you can Terrasilize, and you now have this normal move that Max Strike, which then also gives you speed control because it drops the speed of your opponent's Pokemon. Is that so much different than you know what? This will always just be the Hyper Beam, like no ifs, ands, or buts. Like there is nothing else going on except the Hyper Beam, and I respect that. You know. It's just it's not the same.
Could you imagine when we get to double restricteds and you put Terapagos and Miraidon on the same team, right? And I have to Terra Grass or Terra Ground or whatever for the Miraidon, and then now you're taking double damage from Terapagos. Kind of I'm a little scared for the future.
I kind of forgot about that
because that's what makes it so safe. Where even with Dynamax or Mega Evolution or something, sure, some teams you did want to Dynamax or Mega Evolve the same Pokemon 95% of the time, right? But there was still some wiggle room. But I feel like with Terapagos, I don't even know if wiggle room exists. I feel like you do legitimately want to Terra it every single game because you can hit ghost types with your, fake normal attack because it's actually a stellar attack, and it's not resisted by rock, it's not resisted by steel, it's just neutral into everything. And then double damage to Terrestrialized Pokemon. Well, one Pokemon Terras every single game, so you're gonna hit something super effectively every game.
It's just when you Terrestrialize it, because sometimes you will be hitting more a single damage before you Terrestrialize as well. When you Terrestrialize, it's then the ability change. I forget the name. I'll remember it in due time, I'm sure. But that erases terrain and weather, but only upon the Terrestrialization. So you might need to save it so you can have it to eliminate the terrain or whatnot. But there's so many I'm sure it'll be Terrestrialized at some point. But there is a little bit it doesn't always just hit the field and go boop. A lot of times it does, but not always.
Now, before we get to Miraidon, we're going to talk about the Scarlet version of Koraidon. Now, you were, a lot of people were on the train that thought maybe it was the third best restricted. It's better than Groudon. It's nice that, you can use the sun and stuff like that. There's only Lucas' team, which got 14th, has the Koraidon. The next highest finishing Koraidon is 41st. So it's a big drop off between how Koraidon started the weekend to where it finished, right? So what are your thoughts on Koraidon? And I think we saw it on stream a couple times. It didn't look too terrible from my memory.
I don't know. I think that they're stronger out there. I think if anything, it just needs a stronger team around it as well. When I look at Lucas' team in particular, looking at this Koraidon, I mean, yeah, you hit the photosynthesis for the Flutter and the Raging Bolt, but then you're also kind of turning off your own Ivy Cudgels, which then kind of sucks. You also set the sun so things will bop your own team a little bit more, like your Chiampao. There's a lot of other things that you're enabling out there. And I think that's the scariest thing with it is there are so many other Pokemon that you will enable that if you're not getting the most out of this Pokemon and in the sun, then what are you really getting to accomplish here? So I think maybe a more actual heavy in on utilizing the sun might be a little bit more of how we see it adapt in the future, but I just don't think I was very impressed with the Pokemon by itself to have it on a team that isn't all about the sun.
Am I hearing Jumpluff? Am I hearing Venusaur? Is that what I'm hearing from your sun brain?
I mean, first off, love a good Jumpluff team, right? But like, no, it's just okay. Like you go up against, like, first off, there's Pelipper everywhere, so you can just get things shut down anyways. But then second, if you're just enabling your opponent's Raging Bolt or anything, it just doesn't feel the greatest anyways. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Koraidon as a Pokemon itself in the first place to really be like, ooh, okay, this is the wave, Not when we have these really, really powerful Pokemon with better speed tiers, better stats, better typings going on in the meta.
Wait, is this competitive criticism or visual criticism? Because I know how you are with how Pokemon look. So do you not like Koraidon for competitive reasoning or visually?
So I was talking competitive. I think it does look a little dumb, but like it's fine,
I was gonna say he looks super cool. I think Koraidon looks cool.
It's just like it's just okay. I've seen worse, seen better.
Yeah, I think it's weird that like I know it gets value out of the sun and using Terrafire and Flare Blitz and Flame Charge and stuff, but like it's like kind of cosplaying as a fire type. You know what I mean? Like, because you're committing everything to being fire instead of dragon and fighting, and like at that point, well, Incineroar 70% usage, like just use Incineroar instead. And most of the teams that have Koraidon also have Incineroar to boost the Flare Blitz damage and stuff. But yeah, I do think it's in a. I think Koraidon will be considerably better when we get that second restricted. Like, I don't want to harp on it over the next 3 months of the format or whatever, but like there are some restricteds that are currently in the waiting for GS Cup room right now. Like Lunala is one of those. I think Koraidon is another, maybe even Groudon, who knows. But now that we talked about Koraidon, it's finally time to talk about the star of the show, Sierra, and that was Rajan Ball and his Miraidon, the Pokemon that mid-Rhydon, right? Everybody was like B tier, average, blah, blah, blah. And I think, I think this is one of the things you talked about with Terapagos. It was like well-intended but misguided, right? People were trying to do lefties Calm Mind and, trying to make it work. Like, I don't think it's that good. And people kept trying to put Miraidon and 5 future Pokemon, put Paradox Pokemon together, and they're like, nah, it's mid, it's B tier. Instead of just making Miraidon the star with Terra Electric and Choice Specs and Helping Hand and all these other things, and Rajan and Dr. Antrella, they showed us that Miraidon means business.
Yeah, the damage output of this Pokemon was absolutely incredible. It was crazy sitting backstage with the other casters, and we're like, can this kill? Like, can this actually kill? Like, at just any point, it was just like,
yeah.
No way this kills, right?
And then usually, yeah.
I don't think there was a single time where the answer was no. Honestly, like it always did. But I think that's exactly it. That it was just being built wrong, and this was just full offensive to every single capacity of that. You got the Tailwind to just enable it even more. You can have the Ogerpon Cornerstone to just kind of like hide away from the Miraidon. You had a Helping Hand on the Farigiraf. And it also, like, everyone's so like, oh my god, about the Miraidon. There's like the Ursa Blood Moon on the team too, because then you can actually press Discharge next to it and deal just like oodles of damage to everything, and like that Ursa's gonna be completely fine. Like this
Terra Ground Farigiraf that you could discharge next to.
Yeah. Like this team was very built around the Miraidon. And the Miraidon's just like, okay. Like it was just so cool to see, especially too with the Volt Switch, because Miraidon's actually pretty speedy. So like you set the terrain, you have your choice specs, you can even Terra Electric if you want to on that turn, so you can have like, ooh, Terra Stab, and then you just Volt Switch out. Bring anything else that you want in instead. So then you have the ability to set your train again, because there's a lot of Rillaboom going around, or click into a different move next turn instead of being locked into something. Like it was just so well done. Like that was such a good run. Like huge kudos to Rajan for that run.
Yeah, and the other point of synergy with Volt Switch is Volt Turn, right? That's that synergy that we use together. The U-Turn is on Incineroar. It's actually Assault Vest, which helps against other special attackers. Sure, you don't have Parting Shot, but like you don't need Parting Shot because if you can take the hit, well, if you Volt Switch out, let's say you have Miraidon Incineroar, Volt Switch out, and Incineroar takes a hit, and then you U-turn, get Miraidon back on the field safe at the end of the turn, and then you can choice specs, click Volt Switch again, or Electro or Drift, or like whatever. Like that AV tech, there were a couple of AV Incineroars we saw this weekend that I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It does remind me of 2022. Like it reminds me that like you don't need Parting Shot. Like U-turn, like it still helps you get out of the field and give you switching potential.
Well, I also just even like U-turn, for the fact that you have that slower switch with all the clear amulet Pokemon going around anyways, right? Like if you can't Parting Shot off a clear amulet Pokemon, just fails, you can U-turn off of it, and switching like at the beginning of the turn, well then whatever swaps in is going to be taking damage. So if you want to be getting that late swap, like you need the U-turn in that case. So I think that is just like a nice meta adjustment overall, both with the synergy with the held item, but also kind of adapting into a lot of the physical attacking threat restricteds are running the clear amulet because they kind of need it, which is then also the funny part about seeing the Miraidon and it's succeeding because obviously with any of the special attackers can't slow them down in that way, so kind of got to thrive off of that too.
It was funny because I was in chat, I was like, I was periodically talking. I don't talk. I'm more of like a lurker when I watch Twitch streams. Like I don't talk too often, but I would occasionally say things like, let's go Burns or something like that, right? And people in the finals, they thought Rajan was cooked. Twitch chat, notoriously always correct Twitch chat, they thought Rajan had no chance. They're like, bro, how's he gonna deal with the Moongus? Like, oh, is the Moongus like it's so slow, he's just gonna put everything to sleep. And then other people are like, one, it has electric terrain, so nothing is getting put to sleep. Rajan also has 2 grass types in Whimsicott and Ogerpon Cornerstone, so they're not going to get hurt. Incineroar is Terra Grass, so that's also not going to work for the Amoonguss. Like, I guess you could hit the Farigiraf and the Blood Moon, sure. But and they're like, also, Rajan's probably been beating Amoongusses all day because it's like the number 2 Pokemon in the format. So, like, if he got to the finals facing Amoonguss all day, like, I'm sure he's going to be okay in this matchup in the finals.
Yeah, look at his team, and I'm not really concerned about Amoonguss.
Right. The only thing you would have thought would be like safety goggles on Farigiraf or something would be the only thing that you would think would be anti-Amoonguss, but like he didn't have that, so that's what Twitch chat was like. Oh, he doesn't have safety goggles. It's like he's fine.
Oh no, he only has a follow me grass type Pokemon.
Yeah,
like
and
I don't know. And electric, yeah, even just going down to an electric terrain. Like, yeah, what?
How about that Cornerstone though? Rose and I have been on the Cornerstone train for months at this point. We're finally proven right. Different format, but we finally got there.
I don't really have anything like, oh my god, because like I don't think it's oh my god, this was the worst one for months and months and months, and it wins one event after the others have won multiple. It's so good. We were right. Like, I think that's just some cope.
Wow,
like that is
hurtful.
like that's just like you're not. Yeah, if it wins, like if it all of a sudden starts dominating usage, and all of a sudden it wins like coming up this weekend, wherever we're going this weekend, and then it wins LA, and then oh my god, we're seeing it in the finals for NAIC. Yeah, we see the Stockholm, and we see it again at NAIC, and it's always there in the finals. Then you could be like, you know what, we were right. This was the best Ogerpon, but like looking through this, like, no, I think it was just a Rajan team diff this time. I don't think
whoa.
Y'all were right. I think y'all still wrong.
No, I don't think we can't be wrong. We could be wrong next week. We can't be wrong this week, okay?
Because you're like going off of like unconcluded data. Like the study isn't finished yet. We don't have enough of a sample period. You're just like a glimmer of hope. Something that I can like a good copium off of. Oh my goodness. Like, no, listen, like we don't have enough data yet.
It is a fantastic support Pokemon because it has sturdy compared to the other Ogerpons. So you're always able to get 2 hits off, get Trick Room out. Excuse me, this team does have a Trick Room mode, if you remember, with Farigiraf and Blood Moon Ursaluna. So like like, I don't think this team would have been better if it had or if it had Hearthflame or Wellspring. Like, Cornerstone was right where he belonged, or she belonged, excuse me.
You're like, oh, this Pokemon has Sturdy. Like, all right, there's 5 Urshifu Rapid Strike in the grand final, and in the
okay,
it
does like 40%.
No, like you're like break through the Sturdy. Like, what all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, breaks through Sturdy. Like, no, you bodied the Sturdy. Like, it's just, I don't know. And all these Pokemon are hitting spread damage attacks. Like, I think it served a good purpose on Rajan's team. I don't think that makes it, oh my god, it is actually just as good, if not better, than the other ones. At least not at this point in this time.
I didn't say it's better.
We've been on about Cornerstone Ogerpon since day one, and we're finally right. No, you're not. You're not yet. If we get like 3 more events down the line, then sure, you can be right. But you're not right yet. We got months of the other 2 chopping the charts here.
This is hurt. This is just hurtful. This is just, I give you your Pelipper credit, but you won't give me my Cornerstone credit. I see how it is.
I'll give you credit when you're right.
I can't be any more right than this week. It's gonna go downhill from here. I'm trying to get credit now.
That's exactly it. It's going downhill from here.
I know. I'm trying to get credit now before it falls out of first place. Right now, it's 1 for 1.
It's not 1 for 1. It's 1 for how many regionals since it's been legal?
I'm talking about this format, though.
It's 1 for 1 on this format. That ain't how it works. That ain't how it works, bud. Come to me after it wins 3 more events. Thank you very much.
That's hurtful. That's what it is. It is what it is. The Cornerstone non-believers still at it. I see how it is. But if we go back to Miraidon, we kind of got distracted by Ogerpon Cornerstone there. Excuse me. I think one of the huge benefits of this meta for Miraidon, it's not just that Miraidon does crazy amounts of damage and was one-shotting resisted Pokemon and all these things. It's the absolute lack of ground Pokemon in the entirety. Landorus Incarnate just doesn't exist anymore. Like, there was no Landorus. The only ground type that's on the usage charts is Blood Moon or Saluna, which was on the same team. And so, like, it just kind of has, like, carte blanche to just click Terra, Electric, Choice Specs, Volt Switch every turn because it's not going to get stopped.
Oh, you just never get punished for clicking it, right? Like, the amount of damage that you even do into like a Rillaboom or like an Assault Vest Pokemon of any sorts, like, you just don't get punished. You Volt Switch out, you get to reposition, you've done a decent little chunk of damage, if not absolutely wiping, destroying it off the field, right? And it'll be intriguing to see kind of how Terras go down the line to kind of make up for that. I do think it was really, really funny. Speaking of there's got to be more Terra grounds and stuff in format. Justin Tang tweeted out, like, Miraidon making everyone throw on a random ground Terra and shows a team pace, and it's throwing ground Terra onto Raging Bolt. Like, out of all Pokemon to put Terra ground on, it is this Raging Bolt that is Electric Dragon that quad resists Electric.
Yeah, right.
I just had a nice. I mean, that's the joke, right? But I still.
But I mean,
still had a giggle.
I think it is not just Terra Ground, but like Terra Fairy, right? Like because the other jokes out there were Pachirisu and Raichu that were Terra Fairy, right? Because you go Lightning Rod and a Fairy type, and now Miraidon literally doesn't have a single attack.
Hyperior as well. Lightning Rod.
Exactly. So I don't think we're going to get that far. I mean, I'm sure you can find a way to make Raichu work, right? Like Wolf One Worlds as a support Pokemon with restricteds available, taking advantage of that Lightning Rod. So, like, I'm sure you can find a way. But, like, some of the things are like, oh, like, you can't just shut it down. You're just going to stop it for one turn. Like, well, no, you would stop it for multiple turns. Like, the turn that you did it, you click the move, you do no damage. Then you'd have to switch out. And then you'd have to switch back in. Like, so it would be a deterrent. Like, is it bad to waste your Terastallization on a Raichu compared to Terapagos or Miraidon? Yeah, sure. But like, I'm sure Landorus is going to be coming back. Like, I'm sure Tinglu is going to be coming back. Obviously, Blood Moon or Saluna is going to stick around. Like, we got to get more ground types because you just can't let the premier legendary of the new generation just get away scot-free in every matchup.
Well, it goes back to this is the first regional of this format. So, and like, nobody really had any idea of what was going to happen going into it. Like, Cali Shadow's been making a big appearance and the grassroots going up to the event. And then all of a sudden, everybody rolled up with Ice Rider, right? So, what we get to kind of get information wise going into the first event is pretty limited. And that'll include things like the Miraidon team. But I don't think that the surprise factor is still going to be the thing going into the weekend. And it'll be intriguing to see as kind of time goes on, like, where the adjustment even is. Because, like, even looking at Miraidon and, like, its weaknesses, like, it actually is weak to some pretty common types out there in the meta. Ice, Dragon, Fairy, like, those three are common. Ground isn't as much right now, but the other three, it would just be about positioning and the better, like, team building going into making sure you have a way to kind of catch it out.
Yeah, and I'm looking, as we're looking at the other Top Cut teams in Indy, shout outs to Andrew Zhang, who got second place, his biggest performance to date for now. And you look at this team, and it's just all gas. It's just like super offense, like Scarf Chi-Yu with Fluttermane, Choice Specs Terapagos, and Urshifu Rapid Strike is there. Like, the only Pokemon that can take a hit is Amoonguss. Everything else, like, is just there to win the game in 3 turns.
Honestly, I respect it. If your opponent doesn't have an answer, they just get rolled, and we got to see that. So, I'm down for it.
Yeah, I was surprised that Tornadus was so high. Like, I know obviously it's a great Pokemon with Prankster and stuff, but like, what was it? Day 1, I think it was like 30. Let me look. What was it? Day 1 was 34% of the field. Like, I was surprised that Tornadus was going to be that high, and that ended up being at 28% on day 2.
I don't know. I think having the speed in this format is really, really nice in some sort of way. I mean, both the teams in the finals had some sort of speed control, whether it was the Torn or whether it was the Whimsicott for Rajon, to be able to have a little bit of different coverage with the thing like the Encore, which I love Encore as a move. I think it's really, really good. But even just looking across the board, there's some sort of speed control in every single one of these. And I think you're kind of behind if you're not having your own Torn or something in that sort of capacity. Because if your opponent sets up a Tailwind or like starts popping off and has the things in their speed, like our Pokemon hit for too much damage for you to really be able to withstand that quite as well.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the other exciting teams here in Top Cut, I mean, Shiliang Tang bringing home the only Kyogre, the team with Zarina instead of Fergaraf, so it's another way to stop priority, but at least you like naturally resist the Volt switches. Not like it's going to help you there. But Iron Jugulus too. Like, this team is kind of crazy from Shiliang.
I mean, Iron Jugulus is just never fully gone away. So see somebody bring it, I'm not the most surprised. I think the thing that I find surprising is just like, it is like a Tailwind Pokemon, but you don't have that priority. Like, I guess you do have the Quick Strike Booster Energy. I just think it's a little outclassed in points to where it's intriguing. But I mean, Shiliang's obviously super skilled player. So I think that's just more so a skill expression on my end. But I just look at the Iron Jugulus and I'm just not a believer.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like, I think I'd obviously rather have Tornadus or Whimsicott or like other Tailwind, even Pelipper, right? Like some other things instead of Iron Jugulus. And to me, it is surprising to see it here. Like, it just pop up randomly, right? Like Marcus Saturn won a regional with it last year. But like, the thing that surprises me specifically for Indy is that this Iron Jugulus is not on a Miraidon team, right? Because all we talked about was like, oh, future Paradox Pokemon, they're actually going to have an ability. They're going to be real. They're going to be real Pokemon now if they have Miraidon. But like, no, you're still just using the booster energy, just still like not taking advantage of it. They'd rather have Kyogre in the team,
I don't think, like, if you want to use one of those, because then that's like, oh, if anyone has like the past Paradox Pokemon, they have to use Groudon and Koraidon.
They don't have to, but I think we're all aware that the future Paradoxes are significantly worse than the past Paradoxes. So like, something that would help Iron Bundle or Iron Jugulus or Iron Hands would be like actually having a held item instead of a booster energy.
I don't know. I think in the case of just like the one Iron Jugulus, just because of the same role that it's trying to like fill. Like I said, I still am not like the biggest fan of the Jugulus, but it's not. I don't look at it being like, oh, it should have been on the Miraidon team. It's just kind of like, oh, could there have been a better Pokemon here? Like what you are gonna get out of the Pokemon, hence why we'll get to see it around. First it's typing, but especially having Snarl. Being able to actually have a way to you have your Intimidate with the Incineroar, you have your way of dropping the special attack with Iron Jugulus. Like you're kind of covering your bases on that. But yeah, it's just not my personal vibe.
Now, if we look at the best vibes of all of Top Cut, honestly, is on Keanu's team.
I was gonna say Dr. Eric Trailer's team.
No.
Ditto.
Yeah. He does have a Ditto, yeah. But Keanu's team is absolutely out of this world. Latios, Galarian Moltres, Zamazenta, Rillaboom, Chien-Pao, and Pelipper. And it's just like it's like every Pokemon gets weirder as you scroll down, and like every set you're like, oh, okay. Like, and he got top 8 with this. Obviously he crushed it. It was awesome.
I don't know. Huge congratulations to Keanu, of course. Looking at this team, like it's when you have a team, obviously, like you build something that's like kind of curated to your own play style and what works for you. And obviously this worked super, super well for Keanu. I just like Galarian Moltres. I just
Terra Dark also, you're just not like changing your typing there, you know?
You just go all out. Like I would
love like this is what's so crazy about Pokemon to me is like if I sent this team to a friend, like they might not even respond. You know what I mean? But this team got top 8 at an event. Like if I sent a team with Latios and Galarian Moltres to one of my like good friends that like, oh, I think I'm gonna play in Indy. I think I have the call here. And they see Terra Dark Moltres with Tailwind, Fiery Wrath, Foul Play. Like they're gonna be like, all right, good luck, bro. Like I don't think anybody would like. They'd say no, change Latios, make Latios a Flutter Mane. Like like they would all these different things. Like, but like sometimes you gotta just trust your gut, right? Like,
I mean, something that I've learned the hard way, multiple times now, is it's better to go with a team that you're comfortable with and that you know, rather than a team that realistically on paper might be better poised for the event. Like you will, if you're comfortable with the team, you will be able to outplay and you will be able to get a better result than rolling up with something you aren't quite comfortable with, right? So when I look at this, like, even though I'm not necessarily like this team doesn't check the boxes for like myself, mostly because like with the Galarian Moltres, stuff like that, it's just like not necessarily my vibe. Obviously, this is something that Keanu's then worked on and like popped off with, right? And I think going into a new regulation like that is going to be the most important thing. And like there is like a decent amount to this team too. Like you got your way of getting Tailwind. You have double wide guard, which I think is incredible and super good going into this. You also got additional speed control if you're bringing your Latios as opposed to your Moltres, since you have the Icy Wind on it. So like there is definitely a decent little chunk to this team.
Yeah, I would definitely love to test this team out and like just see the good leads and stuff. Like obviously then you have Chien-Pao to lower everybody's defense for Rillaboom and Zamazenta. Like it's pretty cool that we had one Zamazenta in cut and like it was just this crazy of a team to see. But then the last team to talk about, the Doctor is in. Dr. Aaron Trailer with pretty much the same team as Rajan. They work together, but a Ditto instead of Cornerstone.
I like obviously if you just want to be strictly result based, the Cornerstone Ogerpon could do it, the Ditto quite couldn't, but like Ditto making top 8 out of the event, I think is so cool. Choice Scarf Ditto, so you can steal like being one of your Pokemon, like opponent's Pokemon, and when you are in a restricted format, that just has so much to it because now you can't actually have 2 restricteds. Like I love this. I wish this is something we got to follow a little bit more going over the weekend. I wish we got to see more of it. I wish we got to see some fun Ditto shenanigans. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get to. But like top 8 with it, like I don't know. I think Ditto can be quite splashable. I think in this case it's really good because again, I look at Rajan's team and I don't think there needs to be the Cornerstone Ogerpon there. And that was the Pokemon drop for the Ditto at this point. So I do think that there is a lot of utility you can get out of a Ditto on multiple teams if like the 6 thought's kind of just like, oh well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can understand it, and like as you're saying, Ditto does kind of come back out of its obscurity during restricted formats because, oh, that's a nice Zacian you got there. I'd also like to have. That's a nice +2 Xerneas. I'd also like to take your Xerneas and be faster than you because I'm holding choice.
No Xerneas right now, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about prior formats.
Okay.
When Ditto used to come back, like that was one of the reasons was to like if you're gonna set up on me, I'm gonna take it and be choice scarf and faster than you. So.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Oh, there's like one guy. Okay, Andrew Block, 28th, finished 10-4 with somewhat of a future paradox team here. Miraidon, Iron Bundle, Incineroar, Iron Valiant, also with Tornadus and Furrygraph. So some people are using that electric terrain for more than just Miraidon.
I think you looking for it and like the comments about the Iron Jugulus, you are being one of those people that's trying to put Miraidon in that box as the
I'm not trying to put it in a box. I'm seeing who else has placed it in that box. And and Andrew blocked it into the box, you know?
I don't know. Like,
I'm not trying. Like, I'm not going to sit here on Showdown and make a Miraidon team with 5 future paradoxes. Like, I don't think that's a viable strategy, you know?
Yeah, Kieran White outplaced future paradox Miraidon, all right? I don't want to hear it.
Dude, that team is crap. Arthur Collier with Kieran White, Alolan Ninetales, Milotic, Urshifu, Indeedee Female, and Ursaluna, Blood Moon Ursaluna. That team is like all over the place. That's kind of cool.
It honestly,
if you're playing that like round 7, will you sit in team preview or you sit like good luck, have fun, and they give you their team sheet? Like, what do you even do?
I just cry. Probably shed a tear. Just shed a lone tear as I look at the blizzard, the double blizzard.
It's like, dude, I would not be prepared for that.
Shed a fake tear. The Alolan Ninetales is fake tears.
Oh,
disgusting.
That's so cool. I
disgusting.
Love it. That's awesome.
Disgusting. Yeah, this event, like, it was pretty, like, I'm excited to play more now that we've got teams and a little bit of an idea going from that event. And it wasn't the only event over the weekend, too. Like, we did get to see a little bit from the Buenos Aires special event as well.
That's true. So this was a 59 players in Master, so a little smaller. Obviously, it's a special event, but it still is the start of a format, so it's good to see what teams are performing well at the beginning to influence the meta. And Juan Salerno got first place at this special event, so congratulations to Juan with a Calyrex Ice Rider, a Moongus, Incineroar, Urshifu, Pelipper, and the Golden Go. Now, for this, we don't have this top 16 cut that we have here on Victory Road. We don't have the team pace for this, so we're not able to see everybody's moves and stuff like that. We can see that we can see the Pokemon, the 6 that were in this top 16, and like this is a pretty spread out meta here. Like there's Torkoal got second, there's a Dondozo in cut, there's a Lunala in cut. There's a Mienshao. There were no Mienshao in Indy, right? But there's a Mienshao that got 4th here. Like, it's all over the place.
Yeah. Well, no Mienshao in Indy on a top placing team because you would only really get to see it with Cali Shadow teams that didn't place well in Indy. But yeah, I feel like the 6th place team having the Cali Shadow with the Dondozo Tatsu Chiyu, like that team's like very just all in. That one looks nasty to play up again, but showing that, like, hey, Cali Shadow can, hang a little bit here.
The Golden Go being the ghost type that wins the event, not Shadow Rider, right? So what do you think about Golden Go? Because I think it's a Pokemon that kind of comes in and out of popularity in the meta. You know what I mean? Like, people kind of forget about how much damage it can do. And like, hey, if 38% of people are going to be bringing Ice Rider, like, I don't mind hitting, make it rain as long as I stop wide guards.
Yeah, I don't dislike it being here at all. I think like the damage output, the fact that you can punish passive turns and set up, especially if there is a team over the Indy weekend that had like a double setup option. So you target one, the other can set up and vice versa. I definitely think it's worth its weight in gold
Hey.
to, to be relevant. I kind of dropped it after that because I was embarrassed. But like, yeah, like I think it's good,
No, don't be embarrassed. Be proud. That's a joke you could say on the broadcast like a million times. Like Cartana's paper thin defenses. Like everybody's made that joke, right?
No, because there is jokes that I hear that I'm just like, please stop. I've heard it 10 million times. It's not funny. I won't say what they are, but I just I don't do that.
Dang, now is revolving door Pokemon on there? Is that
that one's number one on the list.
Yeah.
That is the number one offender on the list.
Yeah, no, it has to be. Yeah, it's not like too much we can talk about with Buenos Aires since we don't have the teams, but like as we mentioned, there was a Torkoal on second place, Augustine's Marinucci's team, which is also Calyrex Ice Rider. So that's like definitely more Trick Room based. That's where Farigiraf and maybe Smeargle's trying to be annoying. But the one Lunala, because I was wrong in my predictions where I said that I thought Lunala might have a chance. I was just in the wrong country because Lunala got fifth in Argentina here on this team with Rillaboom and Cineroar, Ogerpon Wellspring, Landorus Incarnate, and Fluttermane.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued going into an event that's back to in the hundreds about how it'll fare kind of overall, because that is definitely an important distinction. But I think, like, especially the early days of regulation, like, I do think that Lunala is interesting, and if built well, like, it can have, like, some sort of... I feel like any team, like, right now, like, I'm not counting out a lot of restricted here's, Like, it'll come down to, like, the team, the matchups, and just how, like, who's piloting the team on the day, right?
Yeah, I might count out Mewtwo. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I might just be like, no, thank you for your service, Mewtwo, but I don't think you'll be making the cut as my single restricted Pokemon.
That's why I said, there's some I can't count out. There's definitely others that are on my count out list. Don't worry.
How about this team, Sierra? Alejo Humphreys got 9th place, just missed top cut. This is right up your alley. Groudon, Venusaur, Incin, Walking Wake, Farigiraf, Raging Bolt. That's kind of cool.
I'm a fan, but also Walking Wake is Walking Fraud, so I don't really know what else I can say more about it. I just, like, I'm always impressed when people can make the runs with it. I know Michael DeBrest was popping off with Walking Wake and Grassroots. It's just like, I don't know. The Pokemon just feels so bad way too often. I can't. I'm over it.
I can't when you only have Thunder, like the Calm Mind sets that are only Thunderclap and Dragon Pulse, like no Thunderbolt. I don't even know how do you live? How are you not just terrified every turn? Like, because sometimes, as we saw with Rajan, right? Like you could get encored into Thunderclap and lose the game.
I was talking Walking Wake. You just decided to pick a fight with a different Paradox for no reason.
I'm talking Raging Bolt.
Okay, I was like, yo, why is Raging Bolt getting strays on the Walking Wake combo? What?
I don't know. I thought you said Raging Bolt, so I was going off of Raging Bolt. I was looking at it.
I love Raging Bolt. I hate Walking Wake. Walking Fraud. No, I love Walking Wake. I'm mad that it has a middling speed tier and it just bad typing. You gotta Terra and you need the sun for the damage, and it's just, man, it's tough. It's
also,
rough out here.
As you were talking, I was trying to scroll up to find our predictions, so that's why I kind of missed it. You were talking about Walking Wake. I just went with Raging Bolt. Anyway, here were our predictions.
You're good.
For Indy, which kind of all over the place. I'm not going to say, well, I guess we'll see. I think you probably won, but we can count it up here because I did not do well. Just as I was passively watching over the weekend, excuse me, I was like, this Indy was not my event. So the first question, day one Fluttermane position on the usage graphic. You said 4. I said 5. It was 7th. So I would say neither of us get a point there because we were both pretty far off. Like, yeah. I don't think we thought it would be 27%. Yeah, I thought it would still be a little higher than that, right?
I thought like high 30s minimum.
Yeah. Now, second question. Highest finishing grass type Pokemon. Now, we both said Rillaboom, but I'm pretty sure that second place team had an Amoonguss on it, right? Yeah, Andrew saying...
well, technically, aren't we both? Oh, because we're both wrong because it's Whimsicott. Whimsicott, Cornerstone, Ogerpon.
Oh, that's so true. I was thinking of Amoonguss, yeah. I totally forgot Rajan had 2 grass types on his his team. So we were doubly wrong. 1, because Amoonguss outplaced Rillaboom. And 2, because Whimsicott and Cornerstone were...
Aren't we triple wrong?
Yeah,
it's wrong on all accounts.
Yeah, wrong on all accounts. So 0 for 2 to start our predictions, which is really bad.
Cool.
More likely to win Indy, Shadow Rider, or Ice Rider. You said Shadow Rider, and I said Ice Rider. And so even though Ice Rider got second, got third, I still think I get a point there because third place to 24th place. So I'd say
I don't disagree. I just when I can't actually bet on Ugarte going into an event, like I have to in other ways, and I knew he was rolling up with the Cali Shadow, but I kind of knew that Ice Rider was really good, so that was like, I'm going with my heart, prediction, but I will very easily take the L on that one. I kind of knew Ice Rider would pop off.
Now, you are going to catch up, though, in points, because the next question, not counting the OHKO top 5 restricteds, which would to choose a restricted that could make top 8. And you said Zamazenta, I said Lunala, and there was a Zamazenta in top 8. So that point is yours.
Yep. Easy. Too easy. Thanks, Keanu.
Ooh, okay. I think this might be this is the deciding question. Day 1 usage, Pelipper or Farigiraf? You said Pelipper, I said Farigiraf. Farigiraf won by 3%, baby. 21% to 18%.
Should have said day 2 when Pelipper won.
That's tragic. Wow. Isn't that interesting that Pelipper stayed at 21% between day 1 and day 2? Or sorry, excuse me, Farigiraf. That's what I meant. Farigiraf stayed at 21% the whole time. But then Pelipper goes from 18 to 26%. That's a big jump.
Pelipper's better.
Unfortunately for you. We asked for day 1. So that's 2 points.
I know.
2 points for me. And then who's going to win the event? You said Dylan Salvanera. I said Paul Chua. Neither of us were correct on that front. So neither of us get any points. So congratulations to myself, because Sierra's not going to congratulate me. But I won the predictions 2-1.
I'm not going to congratulate you now. I was going to till you rolled up with that attitude.
Well, after the Cornerstone comments, I thought there was nothing that could be congratulated for. I have to win 4 regional predictions in a row to get get congrats.
I'll congratulate you when you earn it, not when Cornerstone on top. It's the best one of the 4. Okay,
I didn't say it was the best. I never made that claim.
Okay, buddy.
Rosemary and I never made that claim that it's the best of the 4. We just said it's the call. And finally, if you say it's the call for long enough, eventually you're going to be right,
Yeah, so that's why I won't congratulate you on being right. I finally got my broken clock right twice a day timing right. I'm so good. Okay, Grandpa.
All right, well, let's talk about something a little more exciting than the cornerstone of our predictions, and that's the commentary this weekend, because you were there in person. I was watching at home with everybody.
Nice.
Wolf made his official broadcast commentary debut. There was a lot of fun, a lot of talking, conversations about it. I had a blast just watching, but let's ask you, as you were there in person, give us all the deets. How'd it go?
Hey, spill the tea. No, it went super good. So going into an event, I always kind of rate how good the event is, considering the overall vibes, how I feel my own segments went, or if I'm casting, how my casting went, and if there was any tech issues or anything behind the scenes that just made it just not enjoyable. But no, it was overall a really, really smooth event. So ended up going good. I got to debut a new segment over the weekend, which went bad, but it went really good. So it was good. And the commentary was super, super fun. You know how the host has an in-ear that you listen to the broadcast with? So our TVs, we don't always have sound, but we can see the game, but the host will put the ear in to hear the casters, be able to write down the interview questions. At one point, I put in my earphone, cue in, 3 seconds later, Wolf screaming for like the next 10 seconds. And then it's just, okay, your peace out. But no, it was super fun being able to have him on the team for the weekend. Like him and Aaron are both just like popping off. And like the community was super, super pumped for that. So that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was loving it with, Wolf and Aaron together. Obviously, they've known each other for like, I don't know, 14 years or something like that. They've been great friends the whole time. And like, you can tell on the commentary, right? Like you can see when people are friends and like they're enjoying the matches together and like they're having fun with it and also being excited from watching and casting with Pokemon. So overall, I think like this weekend was great. All the rounds were really exciting. We had like a lot of new information in all the rounds on like some of the new sets and new Pokemon, and like if you weren't well versed in Reg G before, like I think we learned a lot about like some of the mechanics and some of the interactions, and like obviously Miraidon's crazy amount of damage, but then like all the Terapagos information, like all the casters crushed that the whole weekend, like just trying to explain the 3 different forms, and okay, this is stellar damage, and so it's neutral, but it's also super effective, and like there was a lot of information that you guys had to disperse this weekend.
So yet again, thank you, Katie, for never putting me on casting the first regional of a brand new format, because that was then their problem and not mine. But no, there definitely was a lot going into the weekend, but it was fun. Like I definitely appreciated being able to host, because then it was like picking like the players' brains about like kind of what they're doing. I could not believe the amount of people. I was like, oh, is there anything out there you don't necessarily want to go up against, etc. And the amount of people that were like, oh, like I don't do well into Calyrex Ice. Oh, my team has 4 ice weeks. I'm just like, what? What? Like
all the Pokemon?
And it was people that did well. I think Rajan had said at one point that there was like, didn't want to go up against it. Luca had said that. Like they had answers on the team, but I was just like, yo, like what? Like shook me every time. I could be wrong about Rajan, but I know I had that conversation with Luca.
It's
and,
like, I get it with Articuno, right? You're not expecting the Articuno, but like you're kind of anticipating to see Calyrex Ice Rider. Like you should probably have a couple of resistances.
I mean, I can't look back and say exactly what rounds they played and who they played against and how many they played, but like they both made runs, so they diffed. They had answers on their team. I just like I couldn't believe it, but no, it's fun.
So wait, which was your new segment? Because I know you did 2 that I watched. You did the one where like you asked like Aaron and Wolf, and you asked like, oh, who's their favorite Pokemon or what was their favorite format and something, like they wrote it down. But was the other one with Aaron and Gabby, was that the new segment?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never ran that. So actually I want to pull up YouTube real fast so I get this name right. This is important here.
Very important.
Just give me a all right.
Is it a YouTuber or like a...
No. I figured I had this right, but I wanted to make sure, though I might pronounce it. But shout outs to Suyo, who always does the timestamps for every single one of our videos.
Our hero. Yeah.
Honestly, the GOAT. Thank you so much. Like y'all owe everything to Suyo. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I can't do the timestamps. I've tried. I can't do it. But I had misspoke actually on a podcast episode a few weeks ago talking about segments for stream, and I had called a different segment that I did, which I can't remember what segment I was talking about, but I accidentally called it Family Feud. And sometimes at the end of Suyo's timestamps, they'll add like their own comment about like the podcast. And the episode where I talked about Family Feud, they're like, oh, what regional was that in? Because that sounds fun. I want to go back and watch it. And I saw that, and then I'm like, oh, wait, I totally misspoke. I've never ran Family Feud.
I'm just a liar. My bad.
But I should. Like, it was like, I have like this long list of segments that like I want to run, and some of them don't make it bad or past our big bad producer. I'm just kidding. Look, Katie's just the best. But like some of them don't get the approval. Some of them there's a lot of work to be doing. Some will get kind of made, but we don't get to air them. Like there's a lot. And Family Feud was something I thought of a while ago. Never ran it. And then I was like, wait a second. I have Indy coming up. Like, I can run this. So Family Feud was the segment that I got to debut for the first time, and I was really proud with how it went down. How it was going to be structured was a big issue going into it, and we had to kind of restructure it. Huge shout outs to Jake for helping me like compile the data for that and stuff. And to Dan to swapping behind a lot of assets behind the scenes.
I literally,
like,
as I was watching the stream, I was like, "Oh, poor Dan!" Like that's all you could think of with all the lowers that were coming up, like rapid fire as they were saying words. Like,
oh yeah, because originally, like the way it was like told to him was that it was only going to be the top answer, and I'm like, that's not Family Feud. I'm like, we got to do all of them, Dan.
yeah,
and I was like, I will get you the numbers, but like we need to find a way. I originally wanted to do like top 5 on the board, but like I just couldn't find a way to do it. Right, we didn't have time to build it out to do top 5, so it's just like, Dan, and I'm like, I'll compromise here. We can do a top 3, but like, and I'll explain to you exactly how I want this to go down.
That's so
and he's
funny.
Like, okay, and then Jake helped me get all the data like last minute to like figure out like all the numbers and everything.
So how did you ask 100 people? Like, how did you get the numbers for those questions?
So yeah, so I put it in a couple of Discords that I'm in that are more like competitive VG players, and I always put like the antidote as well. If you're in another team building server or your Discord chats, please share that there as well. And then I even messaged a few people on Twitter as well, like Harris, Aaron Brock, like Marcos Perez, like Hengy, and like I messaged them. So like people that were outside of like my immediate like kind of circle, and was like, hey, this is something I want to do for a segment. Can you share it within your circle so I can get a bunch of voices to this? So I ended up only posting it in about like a couple of different places, and maybe personally sent it to about 5 other people. But then like they kept posting it and they kept posting it. So it ended up being 159 players that filled it out in the end, which is really cool to see how that all came together.
Yeah. Also, shout outs to Marcos as we're talking about him getting his world's invite with Wochien. Just how Arceus intended. Congratulations to Marcos. But yeah, that was like it was interesting because like I was sitting at home and Twitch chat, like we were all screaming assault vest at the one question, like the best held item, like losing our minds. And it's different because obviously Gabby and Aaron are in the moment. You can't think, you can't research, you can't look at your phone or anything. So like sometimes that happens to you on game shows, right? You kind of have a brain fart, like if you're not thinking. But like literally screaming assault vest at the top of my mind at my phone while watching it. Then they eventually got it. I was like, thank you. Oh my god.
It was so much fun. The original idea, which we couldn't end up like workshopping how it would work, which as well, like it is hard to do with like timings of stuff, is originally wanted to pair it, Gabby and Rose versus Wolf and Aaron. But we didn't have enough mics for the lounge, I believe, and just like, how would you even fit me in there? So we just had to do the 1-on-1. But if like I ever run that segment again in the future, like I want to try and go like all out, like have the pairs go up against each other, because then it gets even more frustrating, because then like Gabby can have the perfect answer, but then it's Rose's turn to answer for the teams, and then that adds like the whole like Family Feud-esque like frustration of it, which is just a funny time. So I was very pleased with how that ended up going down. The 6th question, which we ended up not including, was best in-game music to listen to during battles, which would have been so good.
So there were 3 answers for this, right?
So the reason we didn't include it was we did like a Google form for people to fill out. Doing a drop-down menu would then severely like if there's, let's say, because like one was like cutest Reg G Pokemon. I'm not posting a drop-down menu for every single Reg G Pokemon.
Yeah.
So this was written inputs. And for the Pokemon, like there was already so many different ways that people were writing Pokemon out. Like I think my favorite one that I have to call out was, instead of Terapagos, it was Terapagos, which just cracked me up.
Terapagos.
But I could we could kind of go through, organize it by like number group in its own category, and then go and like find the 7 different ways that people wrote out Calyrex Ice Rider and manually count it from there. The music one,
probably
there was legitimately just like 159 different answers. Like it was like there was absolutely no way. So that one, if it ever gets repeated, will have to be a drop down menu. But we couldn't include it for that reason. So I don't actually have an answer for you on which
Okay.
was the
Well,
best.
if I was playing, my first guess would have been AI Professor. I feel like that probably, if you
think
give
that was on the
people
form a lot.
10 songs to choose, I think a lot of people would choose AI Professor. I think Team Star might be up there as a song.
I think the AI Professor is the one that I saw the most of like kind of scrolling through. It was all over the place though. I was kind of surprised.
Well, I mean, people have different music tastes, it makes sense.
I don't know, just some music tastes aren't good to listen to while you're in battle, right?
Wow. Not all music tastes are created equal, according to Sierra.
No, it's just like, I don't know, like you're trying to like, play your winning in match, like everyone's watching you, and then it's like like it's just like a very different vibe than you know what I mean? Like
I definitely understand what you mean. I think I truly do think I perform worse if a worse song is playing in noon. I am 100% there.
And not all songs are created equally. Some of them really just aren't, aren't the vibe.
Not all songs can be AI Professor, It's just, it is what it is. So, although I do think, I'm trying to think if Scarlet and Violet, like where it would rank in the music category compared to some of the other generations. Like, do you think Scarlet and Violet has as many bangers as some of the prior gens?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. Maybe somebody prove me wrong in the comments and list like
I think
five banger songs from Scarlet and Violet. But
Gen 5, like I'd have to go back to specifically look into like battle music in particular, if that's what we're kind of comparing it to. But just like thinking of like Gen 5 music in particular, like oh my goodness, like there's so many like old songs that are so good, and I just wouldn't really put the Scarlet and Violet songs on the same kind of pedestal as them.
I mean, yeah, Gen 5 is probably if that was a Family Feud question, name the generation with the best music. I think Gen 5 would probably be the most common number one on the board there. Fair. I do underrated Sun and Moon, kind of underrated soundtrack. A lot of bangers on the Sun and Moon. Like when you're looking through the battles, like to which song to play, there's a lot of bangers there. If you go back and listen.
I would have to go back and listen because I don't recall them offhand, but I believe you.
And so what were your thoughts on your kind of like Pokemon Newlyweds style segment, like, with the whiteboard and stuff?
I just need to get better questions and kind of workshop it a little bit. So it played out better in my head than I thought it would play out. And like that's, like building out segments, that's how it is. Like I've ran this segment before for League of Legends. But it was kind of more about the games that we had seen over the weekend and stuff, with casting pairs. And I haven't worked on League since like last year. So I think I kind of missed the mark on that. But like that's just like my own personal feedback for myself watching back through to like kind of change up for the next time around. I think it's a good beginning concept, but it would just have to like kind of how it goes.
One question I was asking in Twitch chat was I was saying to ask Aaron what color Snorlax is because of the Toronto when he was just lost his mind with the Pokemon color game.
Oh my goodness.
And Chimecho was also in the color game, and it was also like Wolf's favorite Pokemon or whatever.
That would have been really funny to just like, all right, now, bonus round. What color is Chimecho? And just watch them lose their mind. See if Aaron remembered.
Yeah, it is funny that like he ends up getting stuck. He ends up getting stuck in the lounge for those moments, with the colors, and then with the they were kind of bummed out when the other person didn't get their answer,
That's the whole point. I'm trying to cause chaos.
I had fun. I had fun watching it. So, and you're just trying to fill the time, right? Making it exciting for everybody. So, you got the job. Mission accomplished, Sierra.
Yeah, I just feel like the mission can be done better sometimes, but that's for me to work on. So that's okay.
Yeah. So, are there any predictions that you have for going into Stockholm this weekend? Like, all right, let's see what Miraidon was on day 2. Miraidon was 6.5% of the restricteds in day 2, right? So, like, do you think it was 9% in day 1? You think that's going to jump up to 20%? You think people are going to overreact? You think they're going to just ignore Rajan's win? Like, what are your thoughts for Stockholm this weekend?
I think people will have lines and they'll have answers. I think the day 2 percentage will be the same, but there's not going to be a single Miraidon in top 8.
Ooh, that's a spicy take. No, like it's going to go from 1st to 9th at best.
Yep.
I think I'd probably agree with you. If I had to bet, will Miraidon make top 8 or not? Like, obviously we're not doing predictions for Stockholm, but just a conversation on it. Like, I'd probably lean towards no at that point, just like because everybody's gunning for it, right? Like, everybody's trying to find the way that Calyrex Shadow Rider underperformed, I guess, is like what you can anticipate Miraidon being, because everyone's trying to find the counter to it.
Yeah, and I just don't necessarily think that it'd be too difficult to get some sort of counter on your team in some way, shape, or form, even with something as simple as changing a move or changing a Terra, or even going into a matchup better, having a little bit more understanding of the team. But I think just because it was a little understated going into the event, that it kind of caught people off guard. And I do still think that there is possibility of it staying a strong team in the future. But I don't think for an EU event, coming off of a weekend where it seemed very heavily disrespected, that you's going to disrespect it as much.
Yeah, and I think if Miraidon is going to perform this weekend, it's going to be in a different iteration, right? Because you talked about playing with comfort and playing with things. It's better to play with something that you're comfortable with than something that's like the best meta Pokemon or whatever. Because I don't think anybody can pick up and play this team like this. Like, Rajan got first and Dr. Aaron Trailer got 8th with the Ditto variant instead of Cornerstone. But like, if you just hand somebody Rajan's team, I don't think you can actually just expect to get top 16 with it. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm sure in the team building process. Why is Whimsicott here? Why is Cornerstone here? Why do you have a Trick Room option when Miraidon's 135 speed, right? Like, why are you Electric Seed Terror Ground on, like, maybe people are going to...
an awesome choice.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if people are trying to create their own Miraidon teams from scratch for Stockholm, for LA or something, like, I don't think they're going to look the same way that Rajan and Aaron's teams do here. Like, there's going to be they're going to be variances. They're going to be able to change how this team operates.
There's already like pace going around of very similar recreations of Rajan's team. Like, someone could just take the exact same team, and I think piloting a team like this to a top placement, you need to have some skill to it. I think like it has a high skill ceiling, but it also has a low floor. Like, I think you could very easily pick up this team and click buttons and take some wins.
If there's no ground types, there's no, like,
yeah.
I can see what you're saying, yeah.
So, like, I think you can see what happens when you have someone who's good at the game, who knows the team well, then where they can hit with the team. But I think anyone could just pick up the team and at least do semi-decent with it, because they don't need too much more of a deeper understanding to get the base level of it. And then when they go up against higher skilled players, they go up against teams that maybe they don't expect, that's when you'll start to see them falter and see that skill difference in skill expression.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting this weekend to see how people adjust, like, just from Indy. And also, it's not a lot of time, right? So, like, if you were working on, like, your Zacian Qianpao team, or that you were going to bring to Stockholm, like, you don't have that much time to change it just because Miraidon won the last event. So maybe Indianapolis, or excuse me, LA might be a better gauge of how people are adjusting, since Stockholm is literally like 5 days after Indy. So should be exciting nonetheless. So, are there any other talking points on Indy or Reg G or casting or Wolf or anything?
I don't think anything that our question of the week wouldn't cover. But I don't think that there's anything else that's like Oh my goodness.
Well,
Talk to
all
me.
right. You called Zamazenta, making it to top cut.
Okay.
So, like,
Okay.
give me another restricted that you think, like, not like the main ones, that could make top 16 in Stockholm.
Oh, top 16 is so
I'm
like
giving you some wiggle room, not top 8. You know.
yeah, but top 16 is like the Wild West because like then for top 16 for Indy we had Koraidon and Groudon, right?
Sure. So I want you to plant your flag. What's your restricted?
But like I think they can make top 16. I think we need to just do top 8, shoot for the stars, right?
Hey, it's your question, so or it's your flag, so you can plant it wherever you want. What restricted do you think can make top 8 in Stockholm?
So like fun answer or boring answer?
Yeah, so not Shadow Rider, not Ice Rider, not Terapagos, you know.
Because I do think it is important to touch on, despite the fact that Shadow Rider didn't have the greatest run at Indy in comparison, that I do think it is still a strong Pokemon, strong archetype, and will make top 8. For a more fun one that I'll pick up Groudon for a top 8.
Wow. Okay, that could be interesting. Maybe a little Venusaur Walking Lake action. That'd be cool.
Nope, it'll be on a better version of Sun.
There was that one guy. That one guy had
I
it.
know, but like I just like I don't believe in like, you know what? Like I think you can have one of them. I don't think you can have both of them.
I hope you're proven wrong. I hope Groudon, Venusaur, Walking Lake win in Stockholm.
Okay, but then I still win because Groudon made not only top 8, but it won.
Even when you lose, you win. It must be nice, Sierra.
I know, right? So tough.
All right. Well, before we get to our question of the week, we do have anyone.
What's your Pokemon?
Oh, I was just asking you because I was just gonna do a segue because I like Lunala, but I was dead wrong. So like, I don't know. I think like it'd be cool if that Choice Band Terranormal Rayquaza team with Chien-Pao did something. That would be my prediction. That would be awesome to see. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'll lock in Rayquaza, excuse me.
Okay.
Anyway,
good luck.
If any of you are interested in building a team with an unconventional restricted Pokemon on it, we're going to have our next team building in the Discord, our OHKO team. We're going to revolve around one of these 3 restricted Pokemon. And we're going to have a straw poll for you to vote on in the Discord. So make sure you join our Discord to have your voice heard. So it's going to be either Lunala, Zacian, or Rayquaza. One of those 3, whoever wins, we're going to spend the OHKO community in our Discord. We're going to spend maybe the next couple of weeks or so building the best team, testing it out, showdown, working as a community, working as a team to get a rental code out there for people to use online and maybe bring to an event or something like that. A lot of our viewers also don't have as much team building experience or access to big team building groups, right? So this is another way that you can try to team build with some friends and gain more experience that way. So I don't want you to lead our group or lead our audience down a certain road, Sierra, but like between Rayquaza, Zacian, and Lunala, like, do you think they're at least viable? You think all 3 of those we can make a team of 6 around?
Yeah, I think we've learned our lesson with picking maybe Pokemon that are too bad for the team because then nothing gets done. But no, I actually do think that all 3 of these Pokemon, like, there's different options for how you can build a team around, which is specifically why these 3 were picked. So I definitely think there is a good level of competitiveness you can achieve and also fun. So
yeah, and that's always the goal, right? Like, it's fun talking in the Discord with friends and trying to make teams. Like, that's how we got the Pheasantipity team to work, right? And still, the only person that has won on stream with Pheasantipity is thanks to the OHKO community, is thanks to us working together on that team. So, all right, that poll's gonna be in the Discord if anyone wants to join us to vote on that. But we are going to be ending the podcast here, and we have to end it with a question of the week, of course. So we always ask in our Discord, we ask our viewers and our friends to ask us a question for us to talk about at the end of each podcast. And we even had other people in the Discord saying to go with Geb's question. So this is Geb 2 weeks in a row. Remember, we couldn't let Flame G get 3 questions in a row. So nobody let Geb get a good question next week. We gotta stop it. Priority
number 1.
Nobody gets the question of the week 3-peat, okay? Geb asks, with this season adding 2 new casters in both Len and Wolf, what is it like introducing new casters to the scene?
Yeah. So first off, I definitely think that there's a difference between Len and Wolf here for being added to the team. So my understanding that is Wolf was more of a guest caster as opposed to like official caster of the team going on forward. I could be wrong. I don't know.
That's also my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know Mr. Pikachu's plans. I don't know anything about next year or anything. So, but that was my understanding. I think Wolf being brought on for this event is kind of more reminiscent of other esports to where they'll bring top players on for a broadcast in an event they aren't competing at. And they might have them as repeat guests, but they're still not necessarily a part of like the core like talent group. Which is then just a little bit different. Though we still welcome people in like kind of the same, like the like trying to make sure everyone's comfy kind of going into an event. Try and give them like feedback if they need it. I think Wolf was also a little bit of a special exception in that case where he literally does full-time YouTube. But like other than that, like somebody newer coming in, like talk to them, like kind of try and make them feel a little like comfortable behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing on our end. If you're already on the team and you're asking specifically how the question is worded, like, you know, how do you introduce new casters to the scene, to the team? Like, it being available and, you know, trying to help them is the biggest thing. Because I will say most of it, from my experience, from your experience, from any caster, like most of it is on you at first. Like if you join the team, to reach out to the other casters and try to ask for help or ask questions. How do I do this invoice? What do I do with this receipt? Or, you know, like other things that are a part of the job that are not just talking, right? There are a lot of important questions like that when it comes to commentary and like, you know, oh, should I get TSA pre or should I, you know, go? So like there's a lot of different conversations you can have, and you can ask these veterans that have been doing it for, you know, over a decade and stuff, and they can give you so much insight. So on the first thing I would say is like, you got to do your research. You got to do it on your own. You have to have that drive to reach out to the others. But if you are in our position where you're welcoming a new person on the team, you have to be like welcoming, for lack of a better word, and then available. Like, oh, do you want to practice? Like, I'm down to practice with you, or down to like do research the teams with you, or just like even just hop in a Discord call and talk and answer questions and things like that. So that way, all you have to worry about is casting at that point. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Is if someone's going to be nervous for their first event, like try to make all the other stuff not a worry so that you can only worry about commentary.
I think it's very dependent too on the role that somebody's picking up and who they're kind of paired with casting an event. Because realistically, the prep going into an event is a lot of the time between a duo in particular. So I've actually, funny enough, I have not casted with Len at all, not even a single round, right? But when it is like someone that I'm casting with for the first time, then it's a lot more proactive, like, oh, okay, like talk about roles, talk about like expectations, how it is like casting with each other, ways to kind of like synergize and get along better, which will then be the individual prep that somebody new coming into the team will do like with their partner. And that'll kind of get rinse and repeat going on a little bit forward. And then if somebody's kind of stepping into the host role for being kind of newer to the event, since there isn't someone that they're working with, I'll try to like ask them if they need help. I think as a group too, like we're always like welcoming to new people, but haven't been the best with like, okay, what do you need prep wise, like all of that. But we've gotten better with that, which is then I think really nice going on forward. That can do more of like once we do add people again to the group.
And specifically with Len, it might be like the easiest thing in the world. One, because Len has commentary experience from his old Nugget Bridge days, from, you know, the pre-official events, you know, or Nugget Bridge and Critical Hit were covering all the grassroots regionals. And so he has experience there. He's also incredibly knowledgeable. He's been playing the game for over 15 years and has multiple regional championships and knows every damage calc and like all the possible ways that you can, it's different when someone has as much knowledge as Len. It's not like what I can teach him. It's like, what can he teach me? You know what I mean? Like the first time I'd casted with Len was in Portland. Like I had done a couple of events and I've known Len for years, right? So like, I've always loved Len. He's always a fantastic guy, person to be around, and like just always positive energy and really funny and stuff. But I'd never worked with him till Portland, and then we did the whole weekend together. And then I felt like by the end, like we did a really good job in that Alex Underhill match, and like we had gotten so comfortable with each other by the end of that weekend. Like, all right, I know he's gonna know the X's and O's, right? He's gonna know the ones and zeros, as you'd say. Like, so like I don't have to try to cover those because he's got that. So I have to bring the hype, I have to bring the excitement to bounce off of his analysis, right? And that's the important thing when someone's new, is like, are they better at analysis or are they better at excitement, and how can you meld those two?
Yeah, and then even like outside of the casting stuff, but like when you're actually working the event with, just kind of like touching base with them during, like, hey, how you feeling? Like, we go get some bar and just kind of chatting, because like you're backstage where everyone's working, everyone's doing their stuff. Like, it's kind of be like, yeah, like this is like a place you can be comfortable too, right? Just try and make sure they can be comfortable. Like, we don't really add people like too often, so it was kind of like difficult, kind of like reflecting back, because it kind of just was so easy with Len, because
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't someone we didn't know. Like, we had known him, he had worked with people in the team before, so it was just so much easier than like someone that maybe was a complete stranger, right?
Yeah, and like I mean, I could talk to Len for hours. Like he's just so energetic and always, fun to hear the old stories from like 2006 and like other
You VG
nonsense
old heads.
that was going on way before me. I wish I was there. I wish I could say I was there, but no, it was Len and Gabby at that time. They were all by themselves, and Hulk Hogan was there. But I think with other casters and other games too, it's nice to be like to introduce yourself, right, and like try to talk to them in the casting backstage area too, because like we all become friends. Like I'm friends with, really good friends with some of the Go casters, really good friends with some of the TCG casters, because we're all part of the same team, right? Especially at ICs, we're all on the same broadcast on that Sunday. So maybe at regionals we don't feel as connected because we're all kind of doing our own thing, but we're on the same team. And like think of someone like Juancho Sierra. We've known him for like a year, and now he's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. I get excited every time he's at an event, and like a year ago, I didn't even know he existed.
Yeah, cool person. Glad he's been added, because yeah, it's nice when you can actually chat and like become friends with the people of the other game, because some of like I have really, really close friends that are casting the game, so it's nice. It's like you don't always get to chat with them during an event because you got to focus on your own game, but it's nice that being all on the same teams brought everyone together.
Oh, and one of the other things I love with the other casters is like we always compare the Pokemon within our different games, right? So like we're watching the Go stream, and it's like Vigoroth is on stream or something, and they're like, what? Vigoroth is meta, or Poliwrath is meta, or all these different things. You're like, you would never see that in VGC, like Skarmory and all these other things. And then they look at our game and they're like, oh, okay, so like that guy, why's he got all the hat? Why's he got all 18 hats instead of one hat? Because they don't know who Terapagos is yet, right? They're not going to get Terapagos and Go for a while. So it's always good to see like how our games interact, and you're like, oh, okay, Sableye good in TCG, but it's not. It's good in Go, but it's not good in VGC, or like like those fun conversations when we're watching the streams.
Yeah, though I know like I'm pretty bad for like earpiece in, watching the game, doing my notes. Like I'm not looking at what's happening on the other streams too often. Except for like the 2 times I looked at the TCG stream over the weekend, it was both like, oh, this game again like ended in a tie, and it was like TCG thing.
Oh, shocker! TCG ends in a tie. Who could have?
Yeah.
Who could have predicted?
Yeah, but yeah.
No, I think we sufficiently answered Geb's question. Just be as awesome as Len is. That's the advice I would give.
Yeah, and like we chat to people beforehand too, and try and make sure like they're kind of comfy with like everyone going, and just like kind of introduce and make sure everything's good, right? But yeah, we haven't really added people that we haven't really known or haven't had a history really, right? So
Yeah. Damn. I don't know. Whatever. We're at the end of the podcast. I think we sufficiently answered the question of the week, which means it's time to go. So thank you everybody who has lasted through this episode here. It's been a lot of fun. We hope you enjoyed our Indy recap, and anyone playing in Stockholm this weekend, we wish you the best of luck. But if you're just going to be watching at home, make sure you watch the stream on Twitch on the Pokemon channel. So I know I'm going to be trying to catch as much of it as I can. I know the time zones are. Maybe I'll miss the first couple early rounds for
yeah.
hopefully by top 8 on day 2.
I'm gonna watch party this weekend, but I definitely think I'm kind of sleeping in and skipping a little bit of the vamp and like catch up for like the last few rounds to be live. We'll see what time I get up.
Yeah, for sure. But thank you everybody for watching our podcast this week. Make sure you subscribe, join the Discords, in the description if you want to talk to us in person, help us build the next OHKO team. But for now, I am Joe Brown with Sierra Dawn signing off. This is OHKO. We'll see you next week.